Hey everyone, it's Carissa Wiley here with you today. Thanks for joining me. In this month's edition of the newsletter, I thought I would walk you through a couple of really easy interactive cards featuring the brand new Essentials by Ellen March 2019 release, and I love the images in this release. Now, a lot of times I think that when we think of interactive cards, we think they have to be super complicated, but I'm going to show you a couple of card ideas today that are not super complicated, but they have that fun interactive element to them. I'm going to start out by stamping and die cutting a bunch of different images from this release, and I have the grand lady here and our little gentleman here, and I am arranging them on my Misty. This is the original Misty. And I'm inking them up in some Gina amalgam ink in the jet black. And I love this ink for Copic coloring. And I'm really excited that it is now available in the Ellen Hudson online store. So be sure to pick it up because I'm telling you, this stuff is great for Copic coloring, watercoloring, colored pencils, you name it. It is a great go-to black ink. And you get really great, rich black stampings. Even on brand new stamps, I find that it works really well. So you can see I've arranged a bunch of these images and I'm stamping them a few different times onto some Neenah Solar White heavyweight cardstock. Now, I just prefer to use the heavyweight for most things when I'm crafting. But if you prefer to use an 80-pound, you could absolutely do that. And I'm just going to stamp a few sets of these images. I'm going to take my time and just kind of stamp a bunch, color a bunch, and die cut a bunch all at once so that I have a bunch of images ready to go and put on some quick cards. Now, I like to have these images stamped, colored, and die cut, like I said, for quick cards. This is also something good to do on those days when you feel like creating, but maybe you're in kind of a creative rut. What you can do is just stamp a bunch of images from your newest stamp set, color them and die cut them out, and then just have them on hand for the next time that you are feeling inspired. Then you can just pop them onto a card base with a little bit of stamping in the background. Now for each of these, I am stamping them on the 110-pound cardstock, but then I am going back at the very end and I'm stamping them on some 80-pound cardstock, and that's going to be important when I go to die cut all of these out. I'm going to show you that. And I did go and color all of these images in with some Copic markers, and I'm only using 2 color blends on these. So you'll see here all of my colored images, and you really can get great results with just a couple of Copic colors. You don't have to do 4 color blends every time. If you're not feeling it, don't do it. Keep it simple if that's what works for you, and that was what was working for me today. So now I have all of these on 110-pound Neenah Solar White cardstock. They're colored, and I am going to take my dies and adhere them to the 80-pound version, and I'm going to hold them in place with some delicate surface painter's tape, and I'm going to place them over the top of that 110-pound cardstock and run them through my die cut machine. And then I have a bunch of colored and die cut images ready to go. So for my first card, I am going to use the Backyard Bird Friends. I love this stamp set, and this nest embossed in gold embossing powder is the absolute best. So I stamped that onto a card front. I used the Brutus Monroe gilded embossing powder to emboss that. And I'm going to arrange a few of these branches. I'm going to mix up the flowered branches as well as just the plain kind of leafy branches and kind of create a little scene here in this lower right-hand kind of quadrant of my card. Now, this is a layout that works for me all the time. I go back to it over and over again, but when you use different images and different elements, it really does keep the card looking nice and fresh. It doesn't feel like the same card over and over again. So when I adhere these branches on, I'm using some foam adhesive on the back of them. And you can see I actually took one of the floral branches and I just kind of cut it down a little bit so that it worked in better with that leafy tree branch that I have there as well. Now here comes the interactive portion. I have a mini action wobbler here, and this is probably one of the easiest types of interactive cards that you can do. And I've removed the backer on the hard plastic piece, and I'm sticking that to the back of one of my little birdie friends. I think this bird colored in pink is so adorable, and I am kind of just planning out my layout. Now, before I attach my bird on there, because these action wobblers do add quite a bit of dimension, I'm going to go ahead and stamp my sentiment. And if you knew where you were going with this card, You may want to stamp the sentiment first. I never know where I'm going with my cards. I'm just flying by the seat of my pants. And so I had already adhered my branches on there, and I'm going to go ahead and just emboss this greeting on the bottom that says, so tweet. I think that's adorable. And I'm using, once again, the Brutus Monroe embossing powder in Gilded. And because I used my mini Misty to stamp this onto the card front where there were things already adhered, this worked out okay. And then I can take the backer off the clear portion of this mini action wobbler and stick my little bird onto my card front. And you can see he wobbles and shakes around, and I think that is so much fun and such an easy way to add a little interactive element onto your card. Now for my card base, I'm using heavyweight cardstock. It's cut to 4 1/4 by 11, and I scored it at 5.5 inches to create a top folding A2 size card base. And then I'm going to do a little masking along the top and the bottom. Excuse my wild hair here. I have it all piled on top of my hair on top of my head today. And it got in the camera quite a bit. I think I need to not do that with my hair when I'm filming because you guys, I have a lot of hair, okay? And it gets in the way. So I'm taking this plaid maker stamp set and some stone blue ink from Catherine Pooler, and I'm just stamping some of this plaid pattern along that left-hand edge, and this is just going to stick out from the side of this card front that I'm going to adhere onto this card base. So you can see I just have that little plaid accent along the left-hand side. And I finished off my card with some of the Essentials by Ellen snowball embellishments, which are so much fun. They're like clear droplets, but they're not totally clear. So you guys need to check those out if you haven't already. Now with these action wobblers, I like to kind of stretch the spring up a little bit so you get a little more movement. And this is a look at the completed card with my fun little, very easy interactive little element there. Now for my second interactive card, we're going to step it up a little bit, but this is still what I would consider to be a fairly simple interactive element here. And I'm starting out with my card front. This is cut to 4 by 5 1/4. And I have this little star backdrop here that I am going to die cut into this white cardstock. And it's going to give me just some stars along the top of this curve here. And you can see I have my little gentleman. He is new for March 2019 from the Essentials by Ellen line. And I'm going to have him throwing a paper airplane. Now, he has a lot of fun accessories in his little stamp set there. There's a football that this would also make for a really fun interactive card. But what I'm doing here is I'm creating a channel, and I'm using the Essentials by Ellen swing and slide dies to create this little arched channel on my card front. And this is going to be where my airplane is going to slide back and forth. This is going to be what's traditionally called a penny slider card, but I'm going to use a dime because, you know, I'm just rolling in the money. Not really. It's all I could find. I mean, if I'm being honest, I have teenagers and they take all my money. My son asked me for all my change the other day because apparently that's not real money to him and I should just give it to him, right? Okay, so now that I have my channel created, I'm going to go ahead and just add a little stone blue ink using the Picket Fence Studio life-changing blending brushes. If you haven't tried them, I highly recommend them. I am not a talented ink blender, but let me just tell you, these make a huge difference for me. And you can see I blended it onto my card front, and I'm also blending it onto another panel that's going to go on the back of this. This could be the card base if you wanted, but I'm not that smart. So I'm just making this to where the blue will be showing through the channel when you put this on top. And this will all make sense here in just a little bit. Now to cover my dime, because my little sliding element is so small, I'm going to use a punch circle, and it has a little bit of that blue ink blended onto it as well. That's going to act as kind of a disguise for the dime that I'm going to put behind this paper airplane to make it slide, to give it a little bit of weight. And I've taken 3 layers of foam adhesive and put them onto the back of my airplane, and I've made sure that they're going to slide through that little channel really well. Now, I have to tell you, I did not have any of the circular foam adhesives on hand, but those work perfect for this kind of application here. I just didn't have any on hand. So I'm just testing out to make sure that that works, and it does. And to give this a little weight and make it slide a little bit easier, I'm gonna take a dime and attach it to the back of that circle. And I'm just using a glue dot for that. Now, you can use a penny. A penny is a little bit bigger than a dime. I'm just saying. But you can totally use a penny for this. And like I said, it was all I had on hand. So that's what I used today. And I would normally use a penny, but I will say pennies are larger. So you need a larger circle to like disguise the penny. So just keep that in mind. Now to make this thing slide really well, I'm gonna lubricate the track with a little bit of my powder tool here. And that just kind of gives it a little slide so that this airplane can move back and forth, and you can see I have my little sliding element there. Now remember, all of those images that I colored and die cut, I have them all ready to go. And I can choose my favorite little gentleman here and pick him out and set him aside for my card. Now, before I attach him on, I am going to go ahead and stamp my sentiment because I do learn from my mistakes sometimes. And I'm stamping this in some Juniper Mist ink from Catherine Pooler. It's a really beautiful navy colored ink. And I am going to flip this over now and add a double layer of foam adhesive on the back. Now, the double layer just gives a little more room for that slider element to kind of move around so there's not as much resistance. If you want to do a single layer, you absolutely can, and it would cut down on the bulk of the card. But I found that a double layer of foam adhesive gives a little more room for that dime and slider portion to kind of move around, and it slides a little more freely. So I used a double layer on the back of the card front, and I used a triple layer of foam adhesive between my little dime there and my paper airplane. So this is where that backer comes in with that blue ink blending so that you see the same color through the channel that you do on the card front. And you can see my little paper airplane moving back and forth. And I did put a little frog in my little gentleman's hand there because that is just so boy, right? I can't stand frogs, cannot stand them. But there's something about boys that they have no fear of them, right? I mean, it's very typical little boy. Now I finished my card off with a couple of vellum clouds from the Silver Linings die set. I'm adding some of those Essentials by Ellen snowball embellishments, and I'm adding some glossy accents to this little frog's eyes to give them some shine and dimension, which I think is a fun way to finish off that little frog there. So there you have it, a couple of very simple interactive cards featuring the brand new Essentials by Ellen March 2019 stamps and dies. I think this release is fabulous, and I hope you'll go check it out. And I hope that these cards inspired you to create some interactive cards on your own. And just keep in mind that not every interactive card has to be super complicated to make a really big impact. And I really think there's nothing like an interactive card to bring a smile to the recipient's face. As always, I will have links to the featured products in the description at YouTube, so be sure to check that out. But head on over to the coordinatingellenhudson.com blog post. Over there, you'll find more still shots, more information, a complete list of supplies, and a list of the Copic markers that I use to color all of these images. Thanks for stopping by. I hope you enjoyed these projects. If you did, be sure to give this video a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe to the Ellen Hudson YouTube channel so you won't miss any of our paper crafting and card making video tutorials. I'm so glad you stopped by and hung out with me today. Thanks for watching, and until next time, I hope you have a fabulous day. Hey, thanks for sticking around to the very end. You know, if you've made it this far, you are one of my favorites. To subscribe to our channel, go ahead and click that button on the left side of the screen. And here's a couple more video tutorials I thought you might enjoy.